There's something incredibly powerful about the way we choose to believe it's invisible, but it influences almost everything we do. You can see it every day in how someone enters a room, how they shake hands, how they talk about a problem they're dealing with. Belief isn't just about having proof. It's about holding a mindset, an attitude that says, I'm going to move forward, like things will work out, even if I don't see it yet. And that belief, that attitude affects actions more than situations ever can. Think about it. Two people face the same problem. One believes they'll fail, the other believes they'll figure it out. Same issue, totally different reactions. The first one freezes. They doubt themselves, they avoid trying the other steps up. They ask questions, they try new things, they adjust. It's not that the second person is more skilled or more intelligent. It's that they've already made a choice in their mind, this is going to work. I just need to keep pushing. And that belief changes their actions. It fuels consistency, it fuels focus, it fuels forward movement. We're often told to be realistic, as if being realistic means giving up hope. But usually when people say be realistic, they mean lower your expectations. But that's a trap, because as soon as we lower our dreams to match our fears, our behavior follows. When we think something isn't possible, we stop putting in effort, we stop being curious, we stop trying, not because the door is locked, but because we stop turning the handle. Belief isn't foolish, it's powerful. It's the starting point of taking action. The top performers in the world, athletes, creators, leaders, they all move from a strong inner belief that they can meet the moment. They don't wait for confidence to arrive, they take action and let confidence grow from there. Confidence is built, not something we're born with, and belief is what lets you take that first action, even without a promise. I spoke with someone not long ago going through a tough job change. He had lost his position, didn't have a clear direction, and felt stuck, but then something shifted. Not outside, nothing major happened. What changed was his mindset. He told me, I'm going to treat this like it's the best thing that ever happened to me, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. That one idea changed his approach. He networked in a new way. He brought more energy to interviews. He made opportunities instead of waiting for them. 3 months later, he was in a role that didn't just fit. It was perfect. But it wasn't luck. It was belief. When you behave like everything always turns out for your good, you start making decisions based on hope, not fear. It doesn't mean you never feel fear. It means you don't let fear run your life. You learn to trust the path, to trust your strength. You don't need to know the whole way to take the first step. You just need to believe the next step leads somewhere good. There's a quiet strength in people who move without knowing the outcome. They carry themselves differently, not in a loud way, but with steady confidence. It draws people in, not because they have every answer, but because they seem centered. They're not shaken by every change. They've already decided that things will work, so they bring that decision into every situation. And here's the thing, when you carry yourself like things will work, they often do not, because life magically bends your way, but because your belief leads to better choices. You show up more often, you stay a little longer, you follow through, you listen better, you test new ideas. People enjoy working with someone like that. Doors open more often for people who keep knocking. It's not luck, it's action. Based on belief, we all carry stories in our heads. Stories about who we are, what we can do, what we deserve. Some of those stories were handed to us by teachers who didn't believe in us, by bosses who ignored us, by family members who passed down their own fears. But the truth is, you can change the story. You can decide what belief you bring to the world, and that belief will change how you act and how life responds. Acting like everything will turn out okay isn't being cocky or blind. It's hopeful. It's saying, no matter what comes my way, I'll make it through. I'll learn, I'll grow, I'll come out stronger. And that's not fake. That's smart. That's choosing to believe you can handle it, even when it's hard. The people we admire the most aren't the ones who had it easy. They're the ones who kept moving when everything was unclear, the ones who chose belief when they had no guarantee. They acted not because they were sure of the outcome, but because they were sure they wouldn't quit. That's what inspires us. That's what we remember. So next time you face something confusing or scary, remember the most important choice isn't what you do, it's what you believe. because belief drives action and action drives results. Choose belief. Choose to move like everything is working in your favor, because the second you do, you've already changed your direction. We are all storytellers, whether we notice it or not. Each day, we're writing a story in our minds about who we are, what we can do, and how life works. And here's the key: our brain believes it not because it's true, but because it's familiar. Because we've said it enough times. This isn't just a nice idea, it's science. Our brains are built for stories. They're always trying to connect the dots to find meaning. When something happens, good or bad, the brain asks, what does this mean? And depending on the story we already believe, we'll give it a different meaning. Two people face the same event. One says, see, nothing goes right for me. The other says, this is just a curve in the road, something better is on the way. One sinks, the other adjusts. Same situation, different view. The change isn't in what happens, it's in the meaning. And what's most important is this meaning comes first, action follows how. We think shapes how we act, and how we act shapes our results. It's a cycle, and begins with the thoughts we repeat to ourselves. The brain doesn't check if the story is good, it just goes with it. So if the story we repeat is that we're unlucky or not good enough or always behind, the brain will start searching for proof to match that belief. It's not trying to lie, it's trying to help based on the story we gave it. But here's the great part. We can give it a better story. We can speak new beliefs. We can decide to move. Like everything will turn out fine, not because we have proof, but because we want to aim our mind in the right direction. I'm not talking about fake positivity or ignoring problems. I'm talking about choosing a story that gives us strength to move forward, to try again, to lead even when things are unclear. When we tell ourselves a better story, our brain looks for better answers. It gets curious instead of afraid. It gets creative instead of giving up. I remember working with someone who kept failing in his business journey. He was tired, burned out, and one day he said, maybe I'm just not meant for this. And I said, what if that story isn't true? What if all of this is just building you for something better that hasn't shown up yet? He paused. That question changed his view. He didn't win right away, but he began to show up differently. He asked smarter questions. He treated every problem as part of the path, not a signal to stop. 6 months later, his third business started growing, not because he became a genius, but because he told himself a new story, a story where failure wasn't the end, a story where everything was helping him, not hurting him. The brain listens to the voice it hears most, and that voice is usually ours. The way we speak to ourselves becomes the background music of our lives. So when we act like things are always working for us, we're not faking it. We're training our minds, we're giving it a framework to respond with strength, not fear. This small change shifts how we walk into meetings, how we handle criticism, how we bounce back from rejection. If we tell ourselves every rejection is a new direction, we don't run from it, we grow from it. If we believe every hard time is a chance to grow, we stop hiding from challenges and start welcoming them. The story tells our brain what to do. Look for the good, find the lesson, take the next step. And because the brain wants to help, it starts doing just that. We forget how much power we have. Over our thoughts, we wait for signs to believe good things are coming. But belief doesn't wait for signs, it creates them. When we believe things are working out, we act in ways that match that belief. We become more open, more patient, more consistent. And those actions over time lead to results that prove the belief true. Think about the leaders who changed your life. Chances are they weren't the most brilliant or the most skilled people in the room, but they had a unique way of making you believe, not with exaggeration, not with empty words, but with a sense of possibility. They helped you imagine a version of life where you mattered, where what you did had significance, where moving forward was still within reach. That's what great leaders do. They tell a more powerful story, and they tell it with such consistency that others begin to live it. We have that same power too. We can lead ourselves, not in some overused motivational way, but in a real and practical way. When you get up in the morning, you decide what story to tell your mind is today something to fear or something to grow from. Is the problem ahead a dead end or a step forward? Are you simply unlucky? Or are you in the middle of a meaningful journey that hasn't reached its shift yet? Your mind will follow the direction you give it. It will accept what you repeat. So be thoughtful with your words. Talk to yourself the way you would talk to someone you deeply care for. Speak of strength, of movement, of belief. Behave like something better is on the horizon. And not only will your mind begin to change, so will the way you act, your energy, and the outcomes you get, because the story we carry in our heads isn't just a mirror of who we are. It becomes a plan for who we're turning into. Tell a story that is worth holding on to and start living by it. A lot of people misunderstand what optimism really is. When they hear the word, they quickly think it means being unrealistic. Like optimism means avoiding the truth or pretending everything's fine even when it's clearly not. But that's not real optimism, that's denial. True optimism doesn't mean ignoring the hard parts. It means deciding how we deal with them. It's not fantasy, it's thoughtful thinking. It's the decision to look for what could be possible, even when what's right in front of you feels like too much. And that's where discipline matters. Optimism is something we have to work at. It's a mindset we build, and like anything that matters, it takes effort, it needs practice, and it requires real focus, because the truth is it's easier to be negative, it's easier to doubt. It takes no energy to believe things are going wrong. The world constantly throws reasons at us to feel hopeless, to think we're out of chances or time, but optimism, that's something we must keep choosing, especially when things feel the hardest. You can't just sit around and wait to feel hopeful. That's like saying you'll get stronger before hitting the gym. It doesn't work. You become strong by showing up. The same goes for optimism. You build it by training your brain to notice hope, to seek solutions, and to stay steady in your belief that there's always a next step, even if it's unclear, even if it's messy, even if it doesn't yet look like progress. I've met people who lead with this kind of steady optimism. They show up in difficult situations not with fake smiles or pride, but with calm confidence that says, we'll figure this out, we'll get through this. That kind of mindset brings stability. Others are drawn to it not because the person has every answer, but because they carry belief and direction. That's the strength behind disciplined optimism. It gives people something strong to hold on to. It begins with a small but meaningful question. What is the kindest explanation of what's happening right now? What's the most hopeful way to see this moment when it all feels like it's breaking apart? Ask yourself, what might this experience be trying to show me? What could it be getting me ready for? It's not about pretending it's easy. It's about finding something important in the middle of the tough parts. That's the soul of optimism. It's choosing meaning instead of fear. People who walk through life like everything will turn out okay aren't ignoring reality. They've just trained their minds to accept two things at once, that life is difficult and that it's still going forward, that setbacks hurt, but also carry lessons, that they may not be where they want to be, and yet they're still moving in the right direction. Holding both of these truths takes work, it takes emotional strength, and regular effort. Imagine the difference between someone who sees a failure as the finish and someone who sees it as a chance to learn. The second person still feels upset, but they choose to grow. They say, this didn't go how I hoped, but what door might this open now? Having a strong mindset doesn't just appear, it is created, and the more you lean into it, the stronger it becomes. We live in a world that praises results, but real personal growth happens in the middle of the unknown, in the pauses, in the waiting, in the spaces before things happen. And that's where optimism becomes either your anchor or your trap, the kind that says, I'll only believe once I see results, will not survive pressure, but the kind that says, I'll keep moving even in the fog. That's the kind that stays strong. That's the kind that others follow. Some people assume optimism is weak, but really it's one of the hardest paths to take. It means you refuse to let fear write your story. It's standing in the middle of confusion and saying, I don't know how yet, but we'll get through this. That's not being unrealistic. That's being brave. And here's the truth. Optimism won't promise that everything will work out exactly the way you want, but it does promise that when things do align, you'll be ready. It gets you moving. It keeps you open to possibilities. It helps you stay creative and strong. It pushes you to keep going even when others give up. It helps you stay in the process. I once heard someone say, hope isn't a strategy, but I think they were wrong because hope is where all strategy begins. Hope is what sparks action. Without it, there's no reason to create or solve or risk. Optimism sets things in motion. It tells us the effort is worth it. And when we act from that place, we show up better, we work better with others, we imagine better outcomes, we recover faster, we become stronger, not because we're ignoring pain, but because we've chosen not to be trapped by it. When you behave like everything will work out, you're not lying to yourself. You're choosing a kind of focused optimism. You're saying, I know things might go wrong, but I trust that I'll grow. I trust the future holds more than what's in front of me now. And that mindset shifts everything, maybe not overnight, but step by step. It doesn't mean you'll never feel unsure. Of course you will. We all feel it. But optimism doesn't mean you never doubt. It means you return to belief after doubt. It becomes your steady ground, the mental place you come back to when the storms of life shake things. And when you offer that belief to yourself, to others, to your future, you become the kind of person others want to stand with, not because you offer perfect answers, but because you show them a future they can believe in, a future shaped by work, by values, by strength, by trust. So when you feel like quitting, remember, optimism isn't about hiding from the dark. It's about lighting a small light anyway. It's the steady effort of saying we're not finished yet. There's still something here, still something worth doing. That daily decision, that way of thinking is what turns regular people into strong leaders, not because they never fail, but because they keep getting up. There's always a moment before you take action where you pause, you wait for signs, you wait to feel ready, but the truth is clarity rarely comes first. Confidence doesn't either. We want to believe we need proof before we start, but in truth, action often comes before understanding. The road becomes clear through moving forward. Movement brings clarity. We all want guarantees. We want to know how it ends before we offer our time, our heart, our energy. But life doesn't usually work like that. Certainty is not where things begin. It's something that forms after we've already stepped forward. There's this belief that we need to fully believe in ourselves before we take chances, before we lead, before we try something big. But that's the wrong order. Belief grows from what we do. Each step gives us something real, something to lean on, something that says you're doing it, don't stop. The people we respect, the ones who seem bold or fearless, they didn't wait for certainty. They acted first, and through that action, they found confidence. They discovered parts of themselves they didn't know they had. They uncovered possibilities they couldn't see before. When you live like everything will work out for you, you start building that proof. Right now, it's not fake belief, it's behaving in line with what you want to become before the world reflects it. And when you bring that kind of presence with energy and hope and creativity, the world responds with chances that wouldn't come if you stayed frozen. Picture yourself at the edge of a foggy road. You can't see past the next few steps. You could wait for the fog to disappear, but what if it doesn't? Or what if it clears only as you walk each step forward, showing more? That's how progress works. Movement lights the path. I've worked with people who spent years waiting for everything to feel right, waiting for fear to vanish, waiting for someone else's approval. And what they eventually saw was that waiting doesn't give you new answers, it only strengthens fear. The more you delay, the louder your doubts become. But when you act, even in a very small way, you change the story in your brain. You break the cycle of fear. Action gives you a new message. You tell yourself, I'm not stuck anymore. I'm not powerless. I'm in motion. And that shift from waiting to taking control is where real change starts to happen. One of the most freeing truths is this: you don't need to feel fully ready to begin being ready. It isn't something you must have first. It comes as you take action. You speak up in that meeting, and suddenly you feel a bit more confident, so you send the idea you've been holding back. You see, you didn't fall apart. You try, you mess up, you learn, you adjust. And every time you do, you grow your inner library of proof that says, I can manage this. I'm tougher than I thought. Let me tell you about a woman I once guided. She dreamed of starting her own business. She had the idea, the drive, the plan, but she kept delaying. She said, I just need to be sure this will succeed. But what she really needed was motion. So I encouraged her to begin small. Make one phone call, send one message, talk to one potential client. And what happened? She got rejected a few times, but then she got one yes. And that single yes gave her more confidence than all the waiting ever could. This is how momentum begins, through action, not big leaps. Just steady, purposeful steps toward what you see in your mind. Every step adds strength to the belief that what you want can become real. Each step calls life to meet you halfway, and life often does respond, maybe not how we expect, but in ways that remind us we're not wrong for trying, but we need to stop acting like we have, to feel bold before we take action. Action is the driver. Confidence comes after you've been on the path for a bit, and when you move with the belief that things are working out in your favor, you don't need fast results to feel worthy. You're not seeking proof. You're creating it. There's something powerful in this way of thinking when you believe that life is unfolding for your good, even if it doesn't seem like it yet. You bring a different kind of energy with you. People can sense it, they believe in it, and often they walk beside you. You begin to create a team, a movement, an environment around that belief. And it all begins because you chose to move, even when the plan wasn't fully clear. That doesn't mean you act without thinking. Smart action still includes reflection, patience, planning, but it's still moving forward. Forward motion says, I may not know everything now, but I'll learn by showing up. You can't turn a parked car, but once you're driving, you can steer. You can adjust as the road shows itself. When you reflect on your past, most moments you're proud of didn't start with knowing it all. They started with a leap, with choosing to begin. And what made those moments special wasn't the outcome, it was that you moved. That's what shaped your story. That's what showed you who you are and what you can do. So if you're standing on the edge of something today, a dream, a change, a big decision, and you're waiting to feel ready, remember, action brings proof. And the proof you're looking for doesn't come first. It shows up after you start. When you move like everything is going to work out for you, you're not taking a wild chance. You're building trust in what's ahead. You're choosing bravery over comfort. And that choice builds the life you imagine, one step, one message, one yes at a time. So act, not because you're fearless, act because you're becoming someone who no longer needs approval to begin. We often don't see it, but every time we take action, every time we break through hesitation, every time we move, even in uncertainty, we're not just doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for those watching, the ones hoping someone will show it's possible. Because one of the strongest ways to lead is to become the proof someone else needs. You become the example that it's worth the effort in every space, in every team, in every group. There are people quietly wondering and watching, can someone like me really do this? Can I speak up and still be valued? Can I stumble and still be enough? Can I risk and still stand? And they see someone else do it, someone without all the answers, someone still learning. Gives them something better than advice. It gives them a green light. That's what happens when you act as if things always turn out. You show a mindset that invites possibility. You carry a quiet belief that lifts others, not through speeches or hype, but through how you live your strength, your follow-through. You become a reflection of what's possible for others who've forgotten their own potential. Think about it. When we're unsure, when we're lost, we look around for examples. We search for people who faced the unknown and came through. That's why your story matters. That's why how you lead matters. It's not about having power or being in charge. It's about showing the way. When someone jumps first, it lowers the risk for everyone else. But here's the truth. You can't help others believe if you're always waiting for proof yourself. Real leadership starts with becoming your own proof. Acting in line with your belief before the results are visible, making space for hope even when the end isn't clear. When you do that, you create trust, and trust is the ground where growth can begin. I once supported a leader who stepped into a team that had lost hope. Motivation was low and nothing felt like it was working. She didn't come in with a big show or fast changes. Instead, she came every day, calm, present, steady. She listened, she took action, she kept her word, and in time, her actions told a new story. A story that said, we're not stuck, we're just starting. And slowly people believed again, not because of what she said, but because of what she did. This is how you lead, through example. You become the one who brings strength into the space. just by your presence, not by being perfect, not by being certain, but by being real, by being willing to take the first step. And in doing so, you help others speak up. Now, some people hear this and say that's too much. I didn't ask to be a role model. But whether or not you ask for it, people notice, especially those nearest to you. Your loved ones, your teammates, your children, they're not expecting you to be flawless. They're watching to see if you're real, if you're trying, if you fall and keep going. If you live with intention that says, I may not control what happens, but I choose how I react. And it's your reaction that stays with them, not the wins, not the titles, but how you showed up that becomes their guide when it's their turn to risk. What's amazing is you don't need a big job title to lead like this. You don't have to be the loudest. You just need to be steady in what matters, firm in your beliefs, willing to be seen, giving your best. That alone changes how people feel in every room. And here's another thing. When you act like the proof that life works out, you develop a quiet kind of power. People want to hear you out. They ask for your view. They trust you, not because you know it all, but because you've struggled with the questions, because you're not pretending, you're practicing. And that kind of honesty pulls people in. We rarely speak about the weight of invisible leadership, the type that's not in the spotlight, the kind that happens in personal talks, in private decisions, in quiet battles where you choose to keep going. That's the kind of leadership that leaves a lasting mark. Because one day someone will approach you, maybe long after the moment, and say, I saw you. I watched how you handled that, and it gave me the push to try too. And you'll realize that your mindset, your effort, your strength, it didn't just carry you. It helped someone else find the light. So ask yourself, what kind of example am I becoming? What message does my life send? What permission am I offering through the way I live, show up, and lead? Because the truth is, even when you don't see it, you are someone's reason to hope. You are shaping what others believe is possible. And when you choose to live with trust that life is working with you, even in the mess, even in the waiting, you become a light for places that need it most. This isn't about pride. It's about service, about showing up with care and leaving a path behind for others to follow. The way you live becomes a chapter in someone else's story. So keep showing up. Keep trusting, keep creating, not just for your dreams, but for the people still learning to dream again. You're not just building results, you're sending out waves of belief. And that wave, that effect starts the second you choose to become the proof you once searched for.